Hello,
Hi,
Maria. How are you?
I'm good. I'm having a great day. Other than
Are you?
I don't know I don't know if this is happening for you, but my allergies are out of control.
Bad days for allergies.
Oh, not
This
good.
is taking everything I got.
Otherwise, I'm great.
The Dustin Dander outlook is high. I checked. Did you feel that
It's
rain
just like,
last night?
oh, I felt it. I think my house was shaking. It was like intense, very intense.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was getting heavy rain these days.
Yeah, not good for my pollen intake, but it's all good.
No, not good for my pollen intake. Not good for my pollen intake. But this is not a show about allergies. This is the Be Entrepreneurial podcast. I cannot tell you how happy I am and thankful I am for you joining me today because you and I know each other very, very well.
A memory just came flooding in of when you were in high school and you put me on your shoulders and we're running around the halls. So yes, we go way back and I'm so happy to be here. So thanks for having me.
How many years ago was that?
Well, how many years ago were you in high school? I was probably about, I think it was maybe 20 years ago. Is that right?
I'd like to think I graduated before 20. I think, but there's no guarantees. But anyway, yes, that was a long time ago. We've known each other a long time and we have worked together in multiple different capacities. I think probably because we have a lot of shared interest and we'll get into that, but I wanted to start by asking you a question. And the question is, do you consider yourself to be entrepreneurial by nature?
I knew these questions were going to be deep.
Oh, they're deep. They're deep. They're
um,
difficult.
and I'm someone who's so bad at thinking on the fly, but I'm going to do my best to just pretend we're having,
We're
a
having a
normal
conversation.
conversation.
We're at the
Nobody's
cafe that we
listening.
were at 3 days ago. Nothing's changed.
Okay, so I think if you would have asked me this like a few months ago, I would have said no. But it's funny because I had a day a few weeks ago, which was actually prompted by some of our conversations, where I was like, is this really what I want to do? Like, do I really want to be an entrepreneur? If you're an entrepreneur, you know it's not easy. There are a lot of bad days and a lot of hardships and challenges and things to overcome. And so I just had a day of reflection where I was like, do I really want to do this? Do I want to be an entrepreneur? And I decided yes, that I do, which helped me, I think, take a lot of my power back and kind of look at things a little bit differently. But something I was thinking about after that day was before I became an entrepreneur, I remember I have this vivid memory of going on a walk with my friend, and I was just saying, like, I just feel like I'm made for so much more. I just feel like there are so many things I could do. I see so many opportunities and gaps in the world that I think I could like start something to fill these gaps. And even in my younger days, I had talked about starting like a greeting card company or like all these different things. And so even though I never thought of myself as entrepreneurial, when I look back now, I can see all the little signs where maybe I was more entrepreneurial than I thought. So I think my answer is going to be yes now.
And what was it that sort of prompted that sort of self reflection? Was it a moment in time? Was it an accumulation of things? Tell me about what was making you wonder whether or not, I wouldn't say cut out for it because those weren't your words, but whether or not you wanted to be an entrepreneur.
Hmm. Um, I think I had this point of realization that the way that I've been working in my business has not been the most efficient, impactful. I haven't been contributing to the business as much as I want to, and I'm not seeing the fruit of my labor as much as I would want to. And then that idea, along with the idea that I can see that I'm sacrificing a lot for this business, like as an entrepreneur, it's like everyone's like, I quit my 9 to 5 to work 24/7. But like, you're always thinking about it. You're always, Christina and I are always traveling and doing a lot of different things. And there are sacrifices that come with that, right? Like, I don't maybe see my family as much as I would want to, or have as much free time as I would want to. And so other passions and other things kind of get put on hold for it. So I think those two things, holding those two things at the same time was hard. And I felt like something needed to change. So whether that be either a change in the way I'm working or a change in what I'm doing in general, I just felt like something's kind of got to give here.
And so it sounds like, was it more lifestyle than anything else then? Is that sort of what you're...
Yeah, I think so. I think it was, yeah, lifestyle and just like the way of working and it being very kind of disjointed and all over the place and trying to wear too many different hats.
And why do you think that was? Like, how did you, that's likely not the vision that you had when you set yourself out on your entrepreneurial journey. How do you think you got to that place, which is not the place that you wanted to be?
Yeah, interesting. I think part of it is I'm like a little bit of an overachiever, or I just want to do a lot of things. And especially in our business, I feel like there are so many opportunities and so many things we can do, and a lot of things that people ask us for. And especially in the online space, I'm like, there are 100 different projects I could start tomorrow. And so I think it's hard to just kind of pick one or not be overwhelmed by the amount of things and opportunities that there are to do. So I kind of think the way I was working was very much like trying to do all 100 and not doing really any of them because I was trying to do all 100. And then also I really struggle with working from home. I think I do really well with like being in person with people, bouncing ideas off people, kind of externalizing my thought process. And then that helps me. That's kind of my way of processing. So I think working from home, I feel a little lost. I'm a little like, oh, what should I do now? Oh, maybe this, maybe that. And then a Slack message comes in, an email comes in, a FaceTime comes in, a call comes in. I check my whatever. So it feels very like kind of being pulled in a bunch of different directions. And I think it requires like, you need to be on top of that. You need to control that. And it was sort of controlling me. So I think I just fell into that because I haven't been intentional about, maybe setting aside a time for emails or blocking notifications and doing deep work. For me, there feels like a pressure to kind of be available a lot of the time for my business partner, my teammates, my clients, like whoever it is that's trying to contact me. But by being available all the time, you don't have chances to do like deep work that's uninterrupted.
And how did you decide what to do and what not to do? So of all those things you could do on any given day, all the opportunities in front of you, I completely understand and appreciate how difficult it can be to balance sort of the discipline and deselection and prioritization with seeing opportunities as an entrepreneur and knowing that that's what can make a good entrepreneur, seeing those opportunities, taking advantage of them and capitalizing on them. So how do you balance, or how have up until now, have you balanced that decision-making process?
Of like what to take on?
Yeah, what to take on, what not to take on.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't done a good job of that up until now. I think I haven't made those decisions. Like it's almost like everything that comes up, I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And I don't often say no to a lot of things. I think I say no. My business partner Christina has like all of the amazing ideas all of the time. And so sometimes I'll say no to like the scale of them, like, oh, maybe let's not do this all at once. Let's kind of like make a plan and work our way into it and that kind of thing. But I think especially in the first year or two that we've been going here, I basically said yes to everything. And then I got super burnt out. And then now I'm finally at a place where I think I can start to say no to things and understand why I'm saying no to them. Whereas before I don't think I felt like I had a reason to say no to anything. Like it was like, oh, people want this, we can do this, let's do it. And the more you do that, the more you realize you can't do all of these things. So to answer your question, I don't think I had a way of making decisions of like what is, right to take on right now and what's right to say no to. And I think I'm still in the process of learning how to make those decisions.
If you could go back to the last year, knowing what you know now, would you choose to do all that the same? Like, do you think that was there any good that came out of all of that? Or do you feel like you kind of know, no, I could have done without that. This is what I should have done instead. Or do you feel that experience was necessary or a process that you needed to go through?
It's an interesting question. I think for me, it's a little bit more philosophical. Like, if I basically am someone who has like no regrets. Like, I think everything that I've ever been through that's ever happened to me has somehow worked out for good, in that it's made me stronger, made me into the person I need to be to take on the next challenge or whatever that looks like, right? So I wouldn't change it. Like, I would never change anything that I've done. And I also think that like you do the best you can with the information you have at the time. And I always just kind of lean into that. So yeah, I don't have any regrets, but if I were to give someone else advice, I would probably say, focus on one thing, do it really well, perfect it, understand it, have a great process for it, and go in on it and kind of limit the distractions as much as you can. But I did suffer a lot with like burnout and being super overwhelmed and tired and all that stuff. And I'm still working my way out of it. And it was a really hard time, but what kept me going through that was like, I know this is making me into the person I need to be to take on the next challenge, or it's developing me in some way that I can't fully see yet. But I know everything's a lesson, and grateful for all those experiences.
Yeah. So I want to ask you a little bit about that, and then we'll actually stay on the philosophy side, if it's okay.
Okay.
But on
Yeah,
that,
great.
you strike me today and have always struck me as the type of person who would not let that happen to you. It's sort of counter to to everything you stand for and everything
Yeah.
that you believe. How does burnout happen to somebody who believes all the things that you believe, and to an extent practices a lot of the things that you practice relative to lifestyle, mindfulness, appreciation? How does that happen? Because if it can happen to you, it can happen to anybody.
I couldn't agree more. And I think it's so funny for people that meet me now or met me when I was like in the depths of my burnout journey. Like, you would be shocked if you met me 5 years ago. And it's funny because my business partner was actually my boss when I was in university. She's a couple of years older. She graduated, worked at the university, and then was my boss. And we had so many conversations where she's like, you have to at least pretend to care more. Like, she would ask me to do something. Yeah. I just didn't have a care in the world. I was like the most easy breezy. Like, it was, everything was fun and I just didn't care. And it's so funny because I kind of like went the opposite way when I started a business. So I totally agree that it can happen to anyone. And I actually remember saying before I started a business, like, what is anxiety? Like, I don't quite understand what that means, or like what that feels like, or like, can somebody explain it to me? And now I'm like up at 3 a.m. like thinking about clients. But yeah, I totally agree. If it can happen to me, it can happen to anyone. How does it happen? I don't know that I really have an answer for that. I think for me, it's just all about business. Like, business has been a really I was going to say difficult, but that's not the right word. It's been a lot to take on. It's been a challenge. And I think I kind of just got wrapped into that, and I had a lot of imposter syndrome, and I kind of had this idea that everybody else knew what was going on and how to do this, and I didn't. And I was kind of like, I kind of felt like I just didn't really belong as like a CEO. And the more I got to know other CEOs, the less I felt that way. All love, but we're all figuring it out. So I don't know if I have an answer for how it happened to me, though.
It just happened.
It just happened.
That's how it happens. I don't know that anybody looks in the mirror and goes, wow, I'm getting burnt out today. I'm just going to keep doing the same thing, even though I'm aware. Maybe people do. I don't know. But I just find it so interesting that somebody like you, who sort of preaches the things that you preach and believes the things that you believe. And I think that it's an important conversation to have. And we talk about anxiety, we talk about stress, we talk about burnout, and it's almost impossible not to see something on any given day, particularly on social media, about how to avoid it and what to do about it. And it's easy to read that stuff, and it's easy to see that stuff, and it's easy to say that stuff, but it can happen to anybody. And that's just the reality. And I don't know the answer. Is there something you can do to avoid it? Is it necessary? Actually, I would love to ask you, is it necessary to go through it at least once? And I asked that question hearing from you that there was a period of time where you believed what you believed, but hadn't really potentially been in a situation that was bigger than that, bigger than the beliefs that could have that impact. Now that you've been through it, do you think that it's avoidable, or is it for somebody who's going to take on new challenges, be an entrepreneur, do the new things, really challenge themselves? Is it par for the course? Is it, do you have to go through at least a small bit of burnout to understand what it is, what it feels like, so that you can recognize it, fix it, and hopefully not do it again?
I mean, I don't want to answer for everybody, but I kind of feel like the answer is yes. At least for me, I think it was necessary. And I think what it comes down to is there's always more that you could be doing for your business. And so how do you know where to draw the line? And I think for me, like, especially with a business partner, it's like, I need to contribute, and I need to, I'm not just going to, like, one day at one, I'm not going to be like, bye, I'm off for the rest of the day. And the rest of my team, my business partner, and everybody's still working. So, but even at the beginning, like, I would, even if I stopped at working at like 5, at 6, I'm like, oh, I just thought of 10 other things I should have done today for my business. And there's always more you can be doing. And I think it's also hard with social media because I'm one to talk, but it's my business. But there's a lot of messaging on social, like, oh, you should, if you're not doing this, like those hooks that are like, if you're not doing this for your business, I'm like, what the hell are you even doing? And it's like something you've never heard of. And you're like, oh my God.
Better go learn about that right now.
Yeah. In the way that people are selling their programs, they're trying to make you feel like there's a lot you don't know and there's more you should be doing. And so for me, I think that's what it was. It was I always felt like I should be doing more. I should be doing more. I should be doing more. And then once you do more and more and more, you realize that that's not sustainable and you can't operate like that. So maybe if you go into it kind of already understanding all that, you could avoid it. But for me, I think it was unnecessary evil.
Interesting. And so we're sort of looking in the past. Let's bring it sort of more up to present, which is really very recent. Well, obviously the present is recent. The present is now, but I mean the present for you in terms of just recently going through this self-reflection and coming out on the other side with, yeah, I'm going to do this. Tell me about what was it, or how did you come to that conclusion after what was likely some fairly in-depth reflection? And was it all you, or did you talk to other people and get other people's opinion, or did you go into a cave for 8 hours? What was your process to figure that out?
Yeah, it was a little bit of a cave. So I talked to one of my friends, I think for about an hour, and then I was like, goodbye, going into a cave for 8 hours. It was so funny. My boyfriend came home. I'm just like in my bed in the fetal position, like listening to a meditation. He's like, are you okay? I'm like, don't ask.
No, I'm not. I don't know.
For the sake of this conversation, I'm fine because I would like you to exit my cave. So, how did I come to the conclusion that I wanted to keep going? I thought about the alternatives, really. I think I fell into a bit of victim mode where I was like, oh, being an entrepreneur is so hard and there's all these things to do and it's so overwhelming and I have to work all the time and all this stuff. And then through the 8-hour cave process, it was a little like, are those things true? Like, does it have to be so hard? Do I have to work all the time? Does it have to feel like such a sacrifice, right? Because I think I had been telling myself those stories and then I kind of realized they don't have to be true. I'm just making them true and I'm creating this reality for myself. And it was an interesting day, but also like thinking about, I'm like, what's the alternative? I like go get a job? Like, I don't want to do that. And when I actually thought about what the alternative would be, I was like, oh, could I start like a different business? Like, what? Why would I ever start a different business? So I think I kind of was taking for granted all the amazing things that come with entrepreneurship and was really just focusing on the negative. And then the most powerful thing that happened from this day was I feel like it made me feel like I could kind of take the control back over what my days and weeks and months actually look like. Like I get to choose. I get to choose how many hours I work, how many projects I take on, what I contribute, how I'm working, if all my notifications are silenced, or if I'm just being bombarded by them all the time. It made me realize that I have more control over all those things than I maybe thought I did.
Interesting. And controlling those things can make, well, it does make all the difference in what your day does and does not look like on any given day.
Exactly. It really does. And I think that's the other thing. We think these things aren't really affecting us that much. And I was listening to a podcast the other day talking about how damaging it is to just like wake up and immediately go on your phone and put yourself into fight or flight mode. And I'm like, never really thought of it that way.
As I lay in bed with my head on the pillow, phone, one eye open.
yeah. Checking emails at like 7 a.m. So I think these small daily things impact us more than we think. And we also have more control over them than we think.
So on the philosophical side, if you will, you are a very values and passion driven individual. You like to do things that are aligned with what you believe in, and you are a person who stays true to your values pretty much no matter what, like unshakable. How do how do you sort of marry that with entrepreneurship? And I'll keep it very broad and vague to start.
Well, thank you. That was very sweet. I appreciate it. And I think for me, I mean, a lot of the times I don't really have to think about it. And I'm so blessed to be in business with somebody who has extremely similar values to me. So that also helps. But for me, like my values sort of just inform the way I act almost like unconsciously. So if we're like, oh, let's, send one of our teammates or one of the girls on our team, like a Starbucks gift card just for like, to get them a coffee today, or like just small things, those things I find just naturally happen. I don't know. I don't really like put much thought into them. They kind of just happen. And I think having a business partner on the same lines like really helps with that. And then on a more macro scale, like this business is helping me live out my values, because like one of the most important things to me, maybe the most important thing, is to just make the world a better place in whatever way I can do that. And so that's sort of been my mission ever since probably about 15, 16. And this lets me do that. And I think that was also another struggle I had at the beginning, where I was like, oh, social media, this is so meaningless. Like, and we're just making little posts. Like, what is it all? How does that make the world a better place? And not like doing anything. And coming from a world where I felt like I was making a lot more impact, going into social media was a little scary for me. But what I saw that made me end up deciding to actually go forward with this business was the power that comes from helping people turn their ideas into something tangible that they market, and they find their ideal clients, and they are changing the world with their services. And so by marketing their services, we're helping them change the world. So I actually realized I'm like, this can help me change the world on a larger scale, because I can help amplify other people and their messages. So I don't know if that answered your question, but
if you answer the question, it answers my question. You are the answer to the question. So I want to talk for a minute about the making a difference thing. You and I have walked in similar footsteps in many different continents on this planet. And I think that there was a time where you and I shared a more specific view about what making a difference can look like. We built schools and houses and did water projects in rural communities in the Dominican Republic. We worked in education and supported education in Haiti. We worked in internally displaced people camps in Kenya. the list goes on. And then we both sort of did our own. Those are things that we did. Actually, interestingly enough, it was never actually together, was it? Were we ever there? One time in the Dominican, we were there at the same time in the same place. But all the other times, we were doing similar things in the same places, but not actually at the same time, which was interesting. Yep. Jamaica. That was an awesome time. We won't go there. That was great. I will never forget that. That was fun. So we did education projects in Jamaica, right? So, but I think there was a time where both of us sort of shared this very specific view of here's what it looks like to make a difference in the world. And then time goes by, things change, life happens. And it's interesting for me to hear you talk about how you're making a difference today, because those values are still there. What it looks like in practice today is very different than what it looked like in practice, 5 or 6 years ago. And I, for one, being completely honest, very much struggled with that, because I personally, this is not about me, but I'm going to say this. I personally saw firsthand the difference that somebody can make, and how if somebody believes something and you find a few other people that believe the same thing and a few other people that believe the same thing, suddenly you're looking around and there's a whole bunch of people that believe the same thing that you do. And when all those people get together and put their heads together and their hands together and figure stuff out, it is like truly remarkable what can happen, particularly if the objective is make this world a better place. That was my old world, and yours as well. How do you reckon with that world of making a difference, which looks a little more direct, and this world of making a difference, which looks different?
Great question. And I totally agree. It was a huge, huge struggle for me. I mean, even when I went separately from kind of our work together, I went to Haiti for 3 months one summer, and I was there with one other girl, and we were teaching English. And I was like, this doesn't have, I'm not having the same impact I've had on these other trips. Like, wait, maybe we can rally 18 people to come build a house with us or something. I was like, I think being exposed to making such a difference at such a young age and being able to see it so clearly, I'll cherish those memories forever. That was absolutely amazing. And it's hard to not do that anymore. So I totally agree that it was a struggle. And I think for me, when the pandemic hit and every career path I had ever planned and all my backup plans had to do with that and travel and helping people. And especially at the beginning, it was like, this could last 10 years and travel could not be a thing after this. And I was very lost in terms of what I should do. And then I ended up being a VA for a little bit and was like, this isn't really, filling my cup. And I was lost. Christina came to me. I was like, do you want to start a social media agency? And I was like, absolutely not. I need to do something to make a difference. This isn't going to move the needle for people or whatever. So I think going through that really hard time of not having it anymore and looking for meaning somewhere else, what I found was I was able to see the meaning coming through in the social media marketing, especially with Christina's old business. She was doing coaching and I was kind of helping her promote that. And then she was actually changing people's lives here. People were leaving their jobs, starting businesses, doing side hustles, all these things. And it makes me think of when I was in Haiti. I was talking to this guy, he was about my age, and I was teaching him English, and he was telling me about how he wanted to go to America. And we had this great long chat about why he wanted to go to America, because I said, the interesting thing to me is you're a lot happier than anyone I know in America or Canada. and he was like, well, on the movies, it looks so great. And there are all these big houses and nice cars and all these things. And I was saying to him, but the people aren't very happy. And he actually now lives in America. He was like, I see what you mean. I mean, it's a great story for him. He loves it. And obviously, living in Haiti is not an ideal situation. But I think when I was younger and as we had all those amazing experiences abroad, I felt so much injustice for what lack of material items those people had. And then as I got older, almost felt like it was an injustice for how people in more developed countries are doing, like, emotionally and mentally and spiritually. And I don't know that I ever saw that need kind of earlier in my life. I just thought, oh, if people don't have a house, we need to give them a house. And if they don't have food, we need to give them food. But what about the people here that are struggling so much, um, in different ways, not materially, but in different ways? And I think what allowed me to kind of change from that world to this world is seeing that gap and seeing the help that people need here too. And I think that's an equal need. Hard to compare. It's not like even nearly remotely the same, but it's also a need, and you can also make a difference that way.
And what about passion? This comes up a lot, I think, I find with newer entrepreneurs, I think, but there's this desire to turn your passion into a business, or take the things that you love to do and figure out how to be an entrepreneur around those things. What is your opinion on that?
I mean, when I think about all, like, the other businesses that I wanted to start before this one, and the difference between those and this was that I actually saw a need for this. And I think before I was like, oh, I love making cards. Why don't I sell cards? And the reason I'm not going to sell cards is because there are a million other people selling cards, and how much money do you really make on cards? No offense to anybody selling cards, but I just think this business was a better route for me. So I think if you're kind of just sitting there like, oh, I really like doing this thing, how can I turn it into a business? I don't know if that's necessarily the right approach. I think you more need to start with a problem you see in the world, or a problem people are having that you want to solve, and then find a problem that aligns with something you're good at or you're passionate about. Because I've always been good at social media, and I've always been passionate about it in a way. Like, I've always done it. I've always had a personal brand. I've always enjoyed it. I never, like, sat down and thought maybe I could sell this. So I think, if you're kind of just like thinking about like, oh, I like making chocolates, should I sell them? I don't know if that's the right approach. I think you kind of have to look at the problem you're solving in the market first, and then find a way that can align with your skills and passions and what you're good at.
Do you think sometimes following your passion as it relates to entrepreneurship can actually be a pitfall? Can it put...
What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
Pitfall meaning, so what you like, can it put blinders on? So if I have, a passion for hockey or a passion for canoeing, does it put you in a better position to understand the problems that people have and how to create value around that by solving the problem? Or does that actually help you? Does it hurt? Does it help? Does it hinder? Can it be a more challenging to follow your passion through your entrepreneurial journey versus being passionate about what you're passionate about, not changing that, but not necessarily integrating that directly into your business?
Oh, yeah. I think it's hard. That's a hard one, because if you just follow your passion, you might not make the best business decisions. But if you just follow what is the best for your business or to make money, you might lose some of your passion. And I know, at least for us, like, our people love us because of our passion. Like, that's one of the reasons people are attracted to us. And it's the reason people love working for us. And I think it does a lot of great things for our business. So I think it's important that it's there somewhere. Like, you have to sort of enjoy it, or find something positive in there, something you like doing, something you're passionate about. But I think if that's like the driving force, that can't be the driving force as well as making a ton of money, in my eyes. Like, you kind of got to pick one. So you can have either the business coming first and your passion second, or your passion's first and the business money piece is second. So I think there's no wrong answer. It's more just about what you are looking for and what you want out of your life and what you choose for this life. But I chose to go business first because that was just what felt right for me. But even with the business first, I do leave room for our passions, and we still kind of make decisions with that in the back seat. Just wouldn't say it's in the driver's seat.
And I want to talk about a little bit about community, because something that I notice very much about the social snippet, yourself and Christina, there's no shortage of people who have the magic wand for how to go viral, how to grow your social media, right? How to use social media for business. You and your team do that exceptionally well for your clients, and you do it very well for yourselves. But the thing that stands out about, to me, is the one-on-one, in-person community and how valuable that has been for you, your customers, and your business and everything around. And so I'm wondering if you could sort of tell me a little bit about why you started doing that, some of the things that you do. And I just think it's very interesting because it's like, if you go back to first principles, they would tell you, go meet people, hang out, get out in your community, focus local, right? Like focus on your local community first before you look to a bigger place. You've got neighbors who are right beside you versus people on social media halfway across the world. You do it so well. So tell me a little bit about what you're doing with sort of local and in-person community, why you started doing that, and just tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, let me try and keep this brief. There's a lot I could say here. So I find it so funny when people want to go viral. I'm like, why? What does that do for you? Like, we have friends who started making these like agency reels, and they're like popping off. Like they get like 50,000 views on all of them, and I'm like, how many new followers did you guys get? And they're like, 0. Like going viral, I don't know. To me, I'm just like, why? It doesn't really do anything for you, unless like all of those people that you watched your video end up following you and being your engaged community, which I don't think I've ever seen happen, but maybe it could happen. Why community? Well, I think community's always been important to both of us and in alignment with our values, and especially with kind of what we've been chatting about in terms of our work abroad. Just the power of bringing people together and seeing kind of the magic that comes from that. So to give you a little bit of background on our story, how we kind of got started was when I was working as a VA. Well, actually, I wasn't even a VA yet. I was like looking for something to do, and Christina was like, "Hi, do you want to be my VA?" And I was like, "What's a VA?" So for those of you that don't know, it's a virtual assistant. And so I would help her do her social strategy, make graphics, launch her podcast, all that stuff. And we like basically this was like a side hustle for her. It was a coaching business, but we ran her entire business on Instagram. Like we made all her sales on Instagram. She had a small following. I think it was like about 2,000, but we like sold out her mastermind, sold out her workshops. Like everybody was so into it. And everybody was like, I feel like I know her because she was so great at showing up on stories. And she would bring these amazing groups of women together. And it was just so powerful. And we were like, wow, not only the power of Instagram, but like the power of community is wild. And the breakthroughs these women were having in these groups that she was hosting, it was just like sort of unbelievable. Like we were like, and she was like, I'm not really doing much in some of these containers. I'm sort of just bringing a group of like women together and like magic is happening.
For brunch.
Like, yeah, like literally what's happening here. And then as we kind of started the business and dove into entrepreneurship, we gathered this little circle. There were 6 of us, all entrepreneurs, all in different kind of categories and one of them like teaches piano. Like we were all over the map. But we would come together, we would vent, we would like cry, it was just like the most magical community, like mini little community that we created with them. And we were like, And we would lean on each other a lot too. And we were like, how does anybody like do business alone? It's so hard. And there are so many challenges, and you come across so many people and clients and things where you're like, am I crazy? Like, look at this email this person just sent me. What is happening? And to have those people around you to say like, I see you, I hear you, I understand you, I'm going through the same things, you're not crazy, was so, so powerful for us. And so we wanted to not only help other people create that for themselves and for their businesses, but now we've moved into more local events for women and bringing women together for kind of dinners and brunches and co-working days and all these different things. So I think the power of local community is so strong because like you already start out with a bond, like a relationship. You have something in common. You're like, hi, I'm your neighbor. Like I'm from Kitchener too. And then those relationships can be so strong, and we really help people build digital communities, and that's really powerful for business. But in person, it's just different. In person, you meet someone in person and you become their friend. Like you get their essence, you get a lot of their character and their values, and you really get a feel for them. And so those relationships, like our entire business is built on relationships, whether it be referrals or partners or clients or even just people following us, people listening to the podcast, like all of that is where the magic is. So we play around a lot in that space. And we've had a lot of fun with it.
And am I hearing that it wasn't necessarily or actually not about, I guess necessarily isn't the right word. It wasn't actually a business strategy to begin with?
It was definitely not a business strategy to begin with. And we were talking to someone the other day and they're like, how do you get your leads? And we're like, oh, usually we like go to masterminds, and
we go for
that
brunch.
That was never the intention of any of these things. Like we never went in like, oh, we're going to go poach all these clients. But then we would just go to an event and talk to someone and, give them a piece of advice about their social or something. And then they end up being a client. And when we looked back, like, I think it's like something like 70 or 80% of our clients come from like events and masterminds that we go to. And it's just about getting in the room, pouring into people, making those connections. And no, it was never a business strategy at the beginning. And we're also big on service. So we like to like give lots of value. And that's something we would do a ton at the beginning, even virtually, just like coffee chats with people, giving them free social media advice. And it was never a business tactic or like a sales tactic, but that was just what it ended up becoming.
Fascinating. And let's talk about Instagram. You
Sure.
are a social media manager. How do you feel about Instagram today versus Instagram, let's say 4 years, 5, let's say 4 or 5 years ago? What are the differences? Is it the same? Is it different? Tell me about Instagram today versus then and using Instagram for business.
Obviously, there have been a lot of updates in the technology, and I think that kind of scares people, and that's hard for people. And I agree. Like there was a period, I think it was in like May or I don't know when, where like almost every day there was a friggin' thing from Adam Mosseri being like, hi, new update. And I'm like, I don't want to hear from you anymore. Just like leave me alone for a little bit. So I think like technically in terms of features and stuff, it's a lot different. I think I would say it's more curated would be my perspective. Like it's less organic, less here's an unfiltered photo of what I ate for lunch, more strategic, more calculated. But all in all, I don't know how different it is. I think it's people sharing their lives, sharing their businesses, sharing who they are, their values, the behind the scenes. I think a lot of the messaging and the use is still similar, even though it might take place differently. Whereas, before it might be an unfiltered pic of your lunch on your feed with like a 2-word caption, and now it's maybe a story or something different. But I think all in all, to me, a lot of the content and the purpose is the same.
It's still there. Is there the same opportunity on Instagram that there used to be?
I mean, I want to say like technically no, but there still is opportunity. Like there are way more people on it, so there are way more people selling on it and using it for business. But then that also means there are more users and more people looking for things. So maybe there are the same opportunities. I think it was easier to grow your Instagram and your community earlier on, and back in the good old days when the feed was in chronological order. Um,
Oh, remember those days?
TBT. Oh, that was the best. But yeah, I think there are still a lot of opportunities.
And what advice would you give to an entrepreneur who's just thinking about kind of taking that first step and starting their journey like today?
Oh, so many things. Um, I think like one of the main things people get caught up in is like, oh, I don't know how to use this and I don't know how to do that and I don't know that, like, and this is changing all the time and I'm like really lost and there are all these people out there that know what they're doing and I'm not one of them. And when people ask how we like learn stuff, I'm like, I don't know, we just like play around and like see what happens. Like, I don't have a university degree in social media management, although I don't think that's far off. Well, in this day and age, but maybe it already exists. I don't know. But yeah, I didn't go to school for this. I just like started posting things on Instagram and some of them went really well and some of them went horribly and it's all information, right? So don't hold yourself to this high standard of I have to know exactly how to do everything perfectly and all my content has to hit and all these things, because the way you learn what works is you do things that don't work and then you see that they don't work and then you try something else. So everything's information. Like, you're supposed to fail. You're supposed to have posts that don't go well. So basically, I think it's like messy action, not holding yourself to a super high standard in terms of being perfect and like this amazing content creator where everything like looks amazing and aesthetic and has their optimized hashtags and all this stuff. Because even now, I think people actually appreciate that authenticity, or when it doesn't look perfect or there's something like a little, off with it. It actually, I think, might be a good thing. So just do it. Like, the worst thing you can do is nothing. So anything you can do is better than nothing. Consistency is really important. So don't post like 7 times in 1 week when you're really inspired and then like go ghost for 4 months. It would be better to just post once every 2 weeks. And you'll hear a lot of advice, oh, post 3 times a week, blah, blah, blah. If you're not there yet, then don't do that, because you're just going to get burnt out, and, 1 a week is better than none. So yeah, take it slow, go easy on yourself, look at your analytics. Don't be upset when posts don't go well.
It's great advice. It's funny you talk about that consistency in social media of posting, because the part of the conversation that I feel there is often missed, which you basically just hit the nail on the head, is consistent does not mean all the time.
Correct.
Once a week is consistent. Once a month is consistently once a month. Once a year is consistently once a year. So it's not about, what you're saying is, it's not about doing it every day or going hard and pulling back. It's just about being consistent and figuring out what that consistency should look like for you. Is that accurate?
Yeah, extremely accurate. Like, totally. And it looks different for everybody. So if you're thinking, oh, I'm supposed to be posting 3 times a week, but I can't do that, so I'm just not going to do anything, you're right. Exactly what I'm saying. And if you're the type of person that's like, I want to just go hard for a bit and then pull back, go hard, schedule 1 post a week for the next like 12 weeks, and then you're consistent. And then maybe in 3 months you get, another resurgence of energy and you make more content. But yes, exactly what you said. Consistency doesn't mean every day or all the time or whatever. It just means on a consistent basis, so that people know what to expect from you.
But in the interest of not being contradictory, for some people, going hard and then not posting for a while, going hard and then not posting for a while, is actually consistent, if that's the thing, if that's the pattern that you continuously do over and over. So it's interesting. I think what I'm hearing is, it comes down to intent. So don't let consistency happen by accident. Be purposeful about why you're being consistent. So if that's who you are and you're the type of person and you just know yourself and you're like, this is how I work. I have 7-day strokes of genius And I get those thoughts into the world. And then I'm like, I don't want to touch this for another 3 weeks. And once a month, you go through 7 days of posting insanely. That is consistency, but don't let it happen by accident. Make it purposeful and have some reason behind it. If that's what works for you. If what we're saying is what works for you, for some people, or I guess would you say that if that's for some people, if that's just the way they are, should you fight it? Should you change it? Or you go, it's social media, it's authenticity, own it. I'm the guy who goes 7 days strong, 3 weeks off.
It's funny. I don't think I've ever seen anyone do that consistently. Like, I think when people do that, it's very sporadic. Like, it's like, hi, here's me for 7 days. And then like, one time it'll be 1 month later, and the next time it'll be 6 months later. So I don't know if I'm really sold on that idea, but I do think if you do that, I would probably say like schedule them out over like a longer time span. Because I think when we talk about consistency, it's also thinking about the way that the audience is like receiving that information. And from my perspective, most like Instagram user behavior isn't typically to like go and binge a bunch of like one person's content. It's more like you kind of see something here, you see something there, and you sort of want to be like remaining top of mind for people. So I don't love the idea of ghosting for 3 weeks, but I would say if you want to do like,
it's not a recommended strategy.
No, I wouldn't say so. But you can go ham, do your 7 things in the week or whatever, and just like, schedule them out to come out a little bit later. They don't all have to go out at once.
Yeah. And I mean, at the end of the day, all you're really trying to do is provide value for people who care, right? And so the best way to provide value to people likely is to give them consistent value as opposed to giving value and then none and doing that consistently. So I think that has merit.
Yeah. Also, it's so funny because I'm the worst example of this where I'm like on my personal brand. I'm like, one day I'm like, chia pudding, working out, doing this. Here's a philosophical quote. I'm on a walk. Here's my dog, blah, blah, blah. And then like, you won't hear from me for 3 days. Christina's always like, why do you post 1 million things? And then the next day you just like don't post anything. I do think stories are a little different. But yeah, for like feed posts and legit content, I would recommend not going ghost as often as you can.
And I think this is my last question. I'm notorious for saying that, and then it not be, depends on what you say. But I think this might be my last question. A lot of people started businesses during the pandemic. And if you follow the statistical trend of entrepreneurship and new businesses, I think it's like something like 88% or 90% fail within the first 3 to 5 years. And if you think about sort of where we are on the timeline from the start of COVID, we are now in that bucket of 3 to 5 years. And I don't necessarily know if it's failure that I want to ask about so much as it's about challenges. I'm seeing and hearing and feeling like there are new challenges for entrepreneurs today than the ones that existed during COVID. And it doesn't mean that today's challenges are harder or worse or anything like that, but just based on the sheer quantity of people who did start, whether it was a side hustle, a business, something during COVID, the reality is they are now sort of in that period of time where it's been 3 to 5 years since they started. Are you seeing that? Are you feeling it? Actually, I think you fall into that category of started this during COVID. What can you say about sort of the world as it exists today for entrepreneurs who started what they're doing today during COVID?
I mean, I was laughing because the stat is a little scary because we're not at the 3 mark yet. So say a prayer for us. And we did start during the pandemic. So fingers crossed.
Fine.
But the difference. Yeah. I mean, this is just from my lens, but something I've noticed is I feel like with COVID. And I think the reason why it was a great time to start a business was everyone was just kind of sitting around with like some money in their pockets. I mean, I know a lot of people struggled, a lot of people had hardships, and I don't want to minimize that, but like the fact that we couldn't, like at one point, I know we're in Canada here, we were like, you couldn't go for walks at one point. Like it was actually a little crazy. So the fact that we were trapped in our houses, I think people just had more time, more money, especially for online businesses. They were just sitting at home with nothing but, cash and a computer. So it's like easy for them to buy
You're either
stuff.
selling something or buying something.
Yeah. Like, I mean, it was easy and it was natural and it was fun. And then I found as the world started to open back up and, I mean, at least in Canada, the price of things is really skyrocketing, but people are just, I think, like have less money in their pockets now because it's a different time and we can do different things and there are way more opportunities and way more places to put our dollar. And I think people are feeling kind of the repercussions of that. And I also think, especially for like a business like mine, people really, really saw the value of online during COVID, like especially social and digital marketing and that kind of stuff. And now that the world's back open, it's a little like, oh, maybe there are other ways I could market my business and grow it. And that's why we've been lucky enough to be hosting some of these in-person events as well. But yeah, I think that would be the main difference and challenge I see. And hesitant to bring this up because I feel like this will definitely prompt another question for you, but AI, I think is kind of, I mean, I don't know a ton about it, but changing the landscape for sure. I'll just leave it at that.
At the 57-minute mark, we're not going to start talking about AI.
I can't. I'm not the right AI person.
I can see your face. It's like, please don't. Please don't. I won't. I won't.
I don't want the robots to come for me.
And actual last question. What is your absolute number one favorite thing about entrepreneurship?
Ooh. It's so much fun I get to have. I'm blessed, like I said, to have a business partner that's so amazing. But our rule number one is always have fun. So I think it's incredible that we can.
That's a good rule.
I've always sort of wanted to have that in a lot of my jobs. And I mean, I did with you, but it's harder to kind of make that a priority when you're working for somebody else. Like our priority is having fun. And your boss is like, our priority is making money, actually, just so you know. But like, it's so important to me to create a life that's fun and enjoyable. And we try and do that for ourselves and our team. And I guess that comes with the power of being an entrepreneur. So I think that's my favorite thing, being able to have fun.
Love it. And where can people find you if they need social media management services from awesome people?
Oh, thanks. Our Instagram's probably the best way to find us, and you can get to our website from there too. So it's at The Social Snippet. Also would love to chat if you're like resonating with any of these burnout things I'm talking about or any of these struggles, or if you want advice on social, just send me a DM. My personal is @ Maria Tassi, TASSI. So yeah, send me a little voice note. I'd love to chat.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I cannot thank you enough for being here. We talk all the time. This is a little bit different, but that's okay. So thank you for coming on Be Entrepreneurial, and I'm sure we'll chat soon.
Thanks so much for having me.